see the annotations. And then, let's see.
All right, everybody. So we're going to be talking about phonological awareness today. And this is, I so wish I had somebody here recording me because I would just put the slides on, behind me versus looking at a PowerPoint. I did not design this PowerPoint. I wish I could figure out who did so I could give them attribution. It's just one of those things that's been in my teaching toolkit forever. As a teacher, whenever you're like, oh, I need to find something. If you just put in the words like PPT after, so you can, so like you're looking for, say you're doing character analysis, 4th grade. If you search for character analysis 4th grade.ppt, you might find other examples of people's PowerPoints. I wish I could give credit to the original author. I have changed it a lot, as I've remixed it. But, just want to let people know, in case the person watching this is actually the person who made it. I doubt that. So we're going to go through the backgrounds of phonological awareness, and then how we teach phonological awareness. And that's a new term. We've talked about phonics, phonological awareness, and phonemic awareness. And you might want to make some kind of, whether it's in Hypothesis on your blog, you could just make a page called Important Vocabulary Words. You can add just single pages to your website and just make a vocab section or just have a vocab sheet. Because when you take the Foundations of Reading test, you're going to need to know a lot of these words by, not just, you have to apply them, not just define them. So you might want to add a vocab section to somewhere. I like just making it could be a blog post to keep revising, it could just be a page on your website, or just a notebook sheet. Something that you're not going to lose. So,
I'm sorry, is this thing on a thing that we can annotate now or not now?
Let me pause real fast.
I don't want to hold you up.
Yeah, no worries. It's in the Phonemic Awareness channel.
Okay.
Just because on this part, are you going to remove that presentations and videos so we could
upload more things? Yes. I just need to grade them first.
Oh.
I would need to provide feedback on your videos first.
Okay, and so that's going to be done today?
Today-ish.
Okay.
Move them to Google Docs.
Well, no. What we'll do in the future?
Are we able to?
You can delete them yourself, but I want to make sure I meet with everybody and go over them all first. In the future, I'm going to teach you guys how to upload files to either YouTube or Google Drive, video files. I don't know if we'll do more video work, but just in case. That way we don't fill up the space. So this guy's pulling on his ears. Why?
He likes it.
Well, in terms of phonological awareness, what are you thinking? What words do you hear in phonological? Sound. What? He is listening for sound, so that could be a clue. So what words do we hear in phonological?
Phonics.
Well, we're going to talk about how phonics is not in the word phonological. But they share a root, in a sense. Phonos.
Phonos.
Does anybody know anything about the word phonos?
Phonos is in Greek.
Mm-hmm. Now, how much of your Greek mythology do you remember?
I should remember.
Yeah, so phonos, and that's kind of your mental challenge. Where does the word phonos come from? Is it? And so, yes, but it does refer to sound, like telephone or the phonogram. And so when you're talking phonological awareness, we always mean your ears. Okay, this does not involve your eyes or any kind of symbols in any way, shape, or form. As soon as you're using your eyes and ears, then we're talking phonics. All right? Except, well, I say that, but in a lot of phonological awareness assessments, we give them pictures and say, what's the first sound in this word? So they are using their eyes in that sense, but you're not associating a sound to a letter correspondence. You're just focusing in on sound. So what do you think it is? If you guys had just on that little brief description, if you had to define phonological awareness, what do you think? Okay.
The awareness of sound.
The awareness of sound. That's a pretty good definition. Well, and basically, it's understanding just the awareness of how words are structured. That knowing that we can break things into sentences, then into words, then into syllables, all the way down to individual sounds. So so phonological awareness is a huge umbrella that has lots of different skills under it. It isn't just one thing. Phonemic awareness, that's a subset of phonological awareness. All right? And it is one of the best predictors, along with letter knowledge, of how that student will be able to read by second grade. If you give a preschool student or a kindergarten student a phonemic awareness assessment and a letter knowledge assessment, you can predict how well they're going to read in second grade. You can predict their chances of graduating high school. You can even predict their chances of ending up in prison, just on those two measures. Yeah, well, because it's not a causation. It could be a correlation thing, where students with lower phonemic awareness and letter knowledge skills are also students in underserved populations. So yeah, and those are researchable and provable facts. It declines. The biggest correlation is really by second grade. That's what's the well, what do we know? Well, when we look at all of the research, when you fall behind by first grade, it's 1 out of 8. That's your chances of catching back up. If you're not reading on grade level, and the reason is, after like 6 or 7, kids start to realize that they're getting labeled. And that's that deficit models, all those other things that I was sharing last week, that maybe this idea of labeling kids is not, that can be causing some of those later issues in terms of our special ed diagnoses. But it's hard, because eventually kids, they don't want to be in the low reading group. And they know in first, second kindergarten, like I have you guys write reading biographies all the time, and my students talk about, well, I know I was in the low group in kindergarten. Those memories haunt them today. So we have to think about, how do we support kids in certain ways. So phoneme awareness is the best predictor of reading success in kindergarten and second grade. It's highly related to learning to read, more than tests of general intelligence. They're reading readiness and listening comprehension. But why? Why is it important? It's the building blocks of understanding how we spell, and that's the building blocks of how we learn to read. These don't exist. This is not a natural construct. This does not exist in languages where there is not reading. So what makes it important? One, we talked last week a lot about alphabetic principle. It helps them understand the alphabetic principle. We all sung that leapfrog song. We looked at the Osmo. Every letter has a sound, and B says ba. And it helps them think about that connection between that letter and sound. And it makes them think about words out of context. That they can see, they don't need to see a word in a sentence to try to figure it out. They might be able to figure out words in isolation. And that's an important reading skill. Well, and if we don't provide instruction in phonological awareness or explicit instruction, you're affecting 20% of the students in your classroom. And it's not hard. I'm talking 7 minutes a day. Like, this isn't a unit. You don't say like, oh, it's phonemic awareness time. No, it's you work it through your day, and we'll talk about different strategies, and we'll play with different ways to do phonemic awareness. And that is actually your learning task, is to go find all those different videos on how to teach different kinds of phonemic awareness. And we'll talk about the different steps, and I'll show you an example of a spreadsheet that we've done in last classes. Because they're represented by letters in print, learning requires them to be aware of them in how you segment words. So they need to understand individual phonemes. Now, what is a phoneme? There's another key definition. Anybody want to know what a phoneme is?
Is it a unit of sound?
It is a unit of sound. It is the smallest unit of sound. How many syllables are there in the word car?
1.
1. How many phonemes?
3.
3. So now, where do you teach, or you have taught before?
I'm a substitute.
You're a substitute. Okay, so what you just saw her do
Preschool, though, not
at a preschool, she's clapping out her words, or we'll teach kids to tap out the words. K-a-r. There's 3 sounds in car.
You know why I got confused? Because there's a special...
Because you haven't had this before.
No. In Foundations, there's a special chart for letters that come before the R. So I didn't know if it was considered...
What you're doing now, we're into phonics. because you're looking at the letters and you're doing something that we'll learn about soon called R-controlled vowels, what we call the bossy
That's
R.
what it is.
Yeah, that's not, see, as soon as you're reading
Uh-huh.
the letter in the word, you're now in the phonics
Okay.
and not phonemic awareness. And that is a constant source of different confusion. So, how much instructional time? 7 minutes a day. 7. You don't do this all the time. This can be, I use it when I'm in a preschool or kindergarten classroom. I might use it with my transitions. If your name has the B sound in it, you may line up. Or let's tap out, use it as your, instead of your eyes on me, 1, 2, 3, you could just say, let's tap out a word. Listen, or not that'd be a hard one, but, tap out, you can come up with, you can use your transitions as moments of instruction versus, and that's the hardest thing in classroom management, are the transitions. And the best transitions are the ones that are pedagogically driven. And phonemic awareness is a great way to just, embed those throughout the day. Because you can just get kids doing them and they have fun. You can tap them out in your fingers. We do this, my kids love to do like stretch words and smash words. So car would be, let's stretch car. And then let's smash it. Car! So they like, those are things that you can do. That's just getting kids to clap and listen. You can say, all right, guys, we're going to clap out, we're going to count out a word. Who can give me a 1-syllable word? And then you can do that and that can be what you do instead of 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, which isn't, that is a good transition and it doesn't ensure that you're not losing instructional time. But why not transform your transitions to actually include a pedagogical goal? So here's a look at all of the phonological processing elements. And you'll see, so it's talking about your verbal short-term memory, your phonological awareness, your rapid serial naming of letters, articulation speeds or sounds, and then, that gets broken down into word awareness, and it starts with rhyming, and then phonemic awareness is that subset of skills under this much larger umbrella. And we're going to talk about, they learn these as a progression. You can't manipulate a phoneme if you're not sensitive to rhyme, right? So, and we can play the different kind of progressions. I mean, what's the one way that most of us learn phonemic awareness? Songs, yeah. I mean, think about Rafi. I'm gonna Eipples in my 9 eyes. I'm gonna oot, ooples in the noo-noos. Or we can go with the classic name game. Rebecca, Becca, Bobecca, Banana, Fana, Fofeka, Fee, Fi, Fomeka, Becca. Sorry, I just changed her name to Becca there on here. But so those, nursery rhymes have a point. They were also teaching us what, weird royals in England were doing. But they also were bringing in a lot of rhymes. Dr. Seuss and all those books. Think about the books that the kids do and the rhymes that they play. So, again, as clarified, phonemic awareness is not phonological awareness. It is a part of phonological awareness. Phonics is neither of these things. All right? And the general rule is if I'm using my ears, it's phonemic awareness. If I'm using my ears and my eyes, it's phonics. Phoneme segmentation, that's the ability to that's stretching out the word. So hill would be, how many letters are in hill? Try that again. How many letters are in the word hill?
4.
4.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. How many consonants in the word hill? 3. And then how many phonemes? Not how many consonants. I messed that up. There's only 2 consonants in the word hill.
Oh, there's 3
Whoa,
separate
whoa, whoa.
letters.
3. There are HLL. 3. There's only 2 different ones. I didn't even mean to say the word consonants. That's what's messing me up. There's 3 phonemes in the word hill. This is where it gets confusing. Like even I just got tripped up because there's the LL is one sound. So it's ill. So you can get kids, then blending is, if you give them the letters, what word is G. B, g. What word is that? Bug. Yeah, so that's blending. So I use stretch and smash. Just because kids like that. I don't know. Manipulation is changing them. And you don't say the letter. What happens to bug if I add the h sound instead of the b sound? Hug. Yes. Phonics now, that's when the sounds of speech are represented by letters and spelling. That's when I could say, what happens to bug if I replace the B with an H? You see the subtle difference between saying, what happens to bug when I change the B sound to a H sound versus what happens to bug when I take out the B and replace it with an H? What would the kids need to know to do the second one?
Say that. Pose the question again.
What happens when I take the word bug and replace the B with an H? What do you have?
Hug.
Hug. Why do you know that? What knowledge do the kids need to know?
What a B looks like and what an H looks like.
Not what it looks like. I think you're closer. Taking it out. No, because it's not what there looks like. I didn't show you what a B looks like. I didn't show you what an H looked like. What do they need to understand about those two letters? What they what?
The sound they make.
The sound they liked. But so they had to know that the letter represented a sound. And that's why it's phonics. Because it's a letter-sound correspondence versus just hearing the sound. Onsets and rhymes. All right, the onset is usually, it's the starting sound that precedes a vowel, okay? So, cat, the onset is the k sound. The rhyme is the ending, the at. It's what follows the opening syllable sound. So, in blast, ast is the rhyme. The blend of BL, and we'll talk about what those are in a second, that would be my onset. So how do we teach all this stuff? Well, what can we do? Can students, you can ask them, students, young kids, they can tell you, they can say, is this word different? If I were to ask my, 3-year-old, if I'd say, cat, hat, and hot, are those the same words? Or if I said, which word sounds different? Cat, hat, or hot? They'll tell me hot sounds different, but they won't know why. So if I were to ask them, the example here is, what does a car start with? And they might say, a key. Or
Good answer.
what does a rabbit end with? A tail. Not the T. So they'll distinguish the sounds, but they won't be able to be aware that those sounds represent individual words. And I've gone over this. This has to have a written language. Phonemes are an invention. It's a technology. All right? You will always learn to speak. Even if you're on some island with a volleyball, you might make up your own kind of language. All right? Or with one person. You could do the experiment. It'd be highly unethical. What happens when you just stick a kid in a box for their whole lives, and what happens to their language? I wouldn't recommend that study, but if you put 2 kids in a box, they'll come up with some kind of language. Language is natural. Reading is technology. All right? And a phoneme is a small unit of sound. And so when's it developed? Well, it's always kind of growing, but being able to recognize those skills is preschool through grade 3. And when did it end in the standards for you folks, the phonemic awareness standards? Did you guys see them in grade 3? Or do we not know yet? So that will be a question to find out. When do... Yeah, that wasn't your group, that was their group. When the phonemic awareness standards ended in the Common Core Foundation. So that's going to be something to figure out. When do we stop? When does it say? You should never, you don't stop teaching it if kids still need the help. But when do they expect grade level mastery in the Common Core standards? That's going to be a question for you folks to discover.
I can answer that. I have.
You don't have to yet.
No.
Yeah, the last grade is grade 2.
Grade 2. He did. But, yeah, so, so even there, like, but, some kids might still need some work in the 3rd grade. When you have an ELL speaker, for example, this happens a lot in Spanish with the letter Y. Why is that?
Different in other languages, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of a perfect word. Yeah, it's sometimes it represents a different phoneme. Or the double L in hill. The double L in Spanish is different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
J,
what?
the J.
Yeah. Well, it depends on
Oh, it's because Y for us is like a jump.
Yeah. And how do you say and?
E.
E. And how's that spelled?
Y.
Why? So here that's when they're making a different sound to letter correspondence because it's a different language. Same thing, like, and there's some phonemes that it's like, especially like my friends of Indian descent, they have different phonemes that are even super hard. Like I can't get my mouth to move in that way to make that sound. I've just never been trained. So there's a real kind of relationship there. So how does it kind of develop? Well, can they tell you whether 2 words rhyme? You're talking 2 or 3 years old now. Can you tell bat, hat? Do those words rhyme? Then can they blend sounds together? Can they then segment? Can they segment 4 sounds? Can they blend 4 to 5 sounds? This is kind of the major chart, all right? Looking at segmentation and blending. First, can they be broken up into individual words? The dog went to the store, or you usually start shorter, 3-word sentences. Mom loves you. What words are in that? What's a word that rhymes with cat? The segmentation and onsets and rhymes we've talked about. Phoneme identification we've talked about. The segmentation and blending I've talked about. And then kind of the analysis and playing with them and manipulating them. That's the switching the b and the h to make new words. Oh, and they use the bug thing there. So I'm going to skip that. Why is it a natural act required to learn to read? Why does it not make sense? Well, in Japanese, for example, each syllable stands for each character, yes, thank you, is syllabic. It represents a syllable. There's hundreds of different syllables. We have a phoneme-based language, so there's 26 symbols, right? There's 26 letters. Those 26 letters can make 44 different sounds together. Athena's going to hold her tongue because I already told the answer. How many ways are there to spell those 44 sounds? 500. English is a hard language to learn. And Chinese is logographic. Each symbol is a word. There's thousands and thousands of characters. Now, there's simplified Chinese that have changed over time. And I'm trying to, so it all depends on, is it a phonemic-based language? Is it a word-based language? Is it a syllabic-based languages? And that makes it, that's why learning to read is an unnatural act. You have to, if it was natural, humanity would evolve to have all of these same kind of patterns. I'm going to skip some of these, so I just want to get to some of the teaching stuff. Yeah. So here, when you folks are working on your activity today, or over this module, this is really what I want you to look at. You're looking for your YouTube videos on phonemic awareness for. I want you to be able to identify what are they teaching. Is it manipulation? Is it segment and blending? Is it identification? Is it rhyming? Is it sentence segmentation? This is phonological awareness. You have to remember the phonemic awareness is starting kind of at this, it mixes in, but now they're phoneme identification. So you're learning all these other skills, being able to identify those first. Then the phonemic awareness stuff really, really kicks in. So here you can use segmenting cards. You see the caboose a lot. I see a lot of people where they make sentence trains where the capital letter, if you look, you can kind of see why they do that. The capital letter looks like the steam engine, and the punctuation is your caboose. So you could take and you can give the kids the cards, and then they have to identify and count out the words and put them up that way. That's an awesome, fun game. Like this can be just a station in your preschool classroom. Like you should have just one of your stations can be a phonemic awareness station with all these fun games. This isn't, hard stuff to teach. You can have them predictable books where they point to words. Now once they start, they're segmenting the sentence still, okay? So that's why we're not talking about phonics yet, because they're not really trying to say what the word says. We're just trying to have them recognize and track that apple is red. And anybody who's taught or has had children knows there's some book that they've read 1,000 times and they can be able to track it with those letters. That's great. That's how we teach you stuff. You can, cut up sentences where you give them the sentence strip, and they have to make the cuts where the words are. And then you're also teaching the fine motor skills of scissors, which is an always important lesson. Rhyming, there's plenty of ways to do rhyming with those. Syllable segmentation, Legos are awesome for that because you can, put different syllables on different words. And I meant to bring some of my board games with these kind of activities today, and I forgot. But you can look at some of those activities as well, where you take the Legos, you put different syllables, you put different onsets and different rhymes on them. You can put different just make them all each individual 26 of them, and make different letters. You can't have one of every letter. You probably need a lot of E's, a lot of R's. Think about your Wheel of Fortune, and those are the ones you need 3 or 4 of. You can use Algonquin boxes where they're doing syllable segmentation. Onsets and rhymes where they're dividing up the words, or you cover up a word. So if that was door, you could have the duh under the one color and the OOR under the red, and they just swipe them and see them. That's just simple. And you can do this at your morning meeting, like phonemic awareness. If you just did 5 minutes a day at morning meeting of phonemic awareness, we do a lot of weather, we do a lot of math activities. I don't see enough phonemic awareness activities in the preschool morning meeting. It's a clutch easy time to do it. How hard is that? Duck, dog, doll. Who can tell me what sound that starts with? And it sounds easy now, but go try it with a bunch of 3-year-olds. They may not be able to. But you can do those repetitions like that. That takes 30 seconds. Like I said, we're talking 7 minutes a day in a preschool, kindergarten, first, second grade classroom. Yes, ma'am.
So why is for learning not looking at the letters and only focusing on the hearing such a beneficial thing for learners? Like, why is it so good for preschoolers to not be looking at the word and to be at morning meeting and only be hearing it? Like, what are we giving them when we give them that 20 hours a year of the phonemic awareness?
Well,
something different in their learning?
What we know, and this is like where we're getting into correlations and causations again, what we know is that the students who score very well on phonemic awareness are better readers in second grade. So we do it because we know it works.
Okay.
And why is because it does help them with their spelling, and it helps them make those letter. It helps them make those letter sound correspondence later. It helps them recognize words outside of context. Because sometimes they might be able to read a word because it will say they can't read the word, but there's a picture of a duck in a pond, and they'll say the duck is wet because there's a picture of a duck with raindrops on it. And they're not really reading. They're using context. So this helps them be able to understand and read words outside of context. Using pictures, and this is how most phonemic awareness assessments work, is you give them the pictures and they have to tell you the picture or name it by the sound. You can sort them. I want you to put all of the pictures that start with a huh sound in this pile, And all the pictures start with a B sound in this pile. All right. And I'm skipping kind of the older reader stuff. The segment and blend phonemes. And this is, we can do the arm one. We already talked about how you can clap out mat. You could do the tap it out, because eventually get really tired of having a bunch of kindergartners, first grades clapping. So you go to a golf clap or you go to a tap it out. It's at. And that actually helps because now they're counting. And so if they're in kindergarten or if they're in preschool and first grade, they're practicing their counting skills. The at is this one where she's starting at the top and moving her way down as a way to segment.
You know what
Yep.
they're doing a lot of now with the in-service preschool is they're using it as an activity.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this
So
is,
they're using the whole body, so then after circle, it's a good transition.
Yeah.
Transition kind of way too. Is not necessarily.
no, I remember I started that. Like, even if it's just a brain, like a, oh, you just see your kids, they're starting to slow. All right, everybody, stand up. We're gonna stretch out some words. We're gonna do head, shoulders, knees, and toes. At. And that's just, and it's, so you're getting them up, so you can have, you're a preschool teacher. I mean, you're putting out 1,000 fires at once. And one of the best ways to control children is with good pedagogy. 95% of classroom management is just having a good plan and good pedagogy. Hopefully you don't need any kind of token system most of the time, because you're just engaging kids in learning. And then afterwards, met. And there's a lot of Android apps. There's a lot of, but more for phonics and things like that. But there's a lot of different apps and things that we already showed you guys, the Osmo, things like that, can work as well. Word stretching is the same way. We've already, I talked about smashing and of those. Move it, say it.
A lot of them are doing robot talk too.
What's robot talk?
Robot talk. I saw it too.
You mean I talk like this when I do
When
words?
they break things down. There's a book, and it goes to the song if you're happy and you know it, but it's something about the robot. So, like when I saw it, they introduce it with that book, but then have the kids kind of robot talk, so they're slowing down their talk to hear the phonemes and words.
And there's a lot of research. I wish I could pull the study off the top of my head, where incorporating music into the preschool and kindergarten classroom, a lot of songs, leads to a large improvement in phonemic awareness and in reading skills in general. Why? What would, from everything we've talked about today, why would song help improve phonemic awareness?
I would think it would stimulate your listening.
Listening skills are important. The rhyming, yeah. What was before you're ready for phonemic awareness, the first step is the rhyming. So reinforcing the rhyming patterns is always good for helping their reading later on. Move it, say it, where this is called the Lonkin box, where, if you give them the word car, they push up 3 tokens into the box. K, R, and they can say there's 3 phonemes in the word car. We talked about tapping it out. And now they're getting ready to decode, all right? And so they're starting to think about the letters. And the word shark. How many phonemes are in the word shark?
Four?
Great.
Is one.
I have a 3, I have a 4, and a 5.
The R's mix me up.
Sh is 1 sound. Is it? Or 2 sound?
It's a blend.
But what if I say stark? Right, so you're struggling with this. And I'm not even going to tell you guys the answer.
Wait,
You have to come to
I
me.
have to separate the A and
I'm
R.
not going to let you know now. You folks need to tell me in Slack at one point how many phonemes are on shark and how many phonemes are on stark. And are they the same? And are they different? And why? I'm not telling you.
Wow.
So this is, but
What
so
are you gonna
You folks have college degrees, and we're struggling with this, and we need to do this with preschoolers. So this is why, like, just because it sounds simple, don't think it is. Because I'm not going to tell
Can
you.
you make something clear for me though? The R's, the R thing that you were talking about.
Well, those all right.
Is that one sound?
No, what it is. All right. This is we'll get in that into phonics, and I'm probably going to have to record that lecture because it's already 12:15. But say the word cave.
Cave.
Now put an R in there, and say the word cave.
Car.
No, I want you to say it with a long A.
Care.
Say it with a long A. You can't.
Okay.
R. It's well, there's a fancy word I think it's Schwa control vowels. We just call it bossy R. And it's just when you add in the letter R, it changes the vowel sound because R has a vowel kind of sound to
But
it.
is that considered one? Like I'm getting like the chunk say sh, and the R controlled. Is R controlled one sound or two?
Two. The vowel is a sound.
Okay.
But what we're going to have to get to is let me get to phonics because
Okay.
before I need to define that, I need to define blends, diphthongs, digraphs. So there's a lot of key words. So
Okay.
I will answer your
Stay
question.
tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. That is in. You do have the phonics module this week. Both of these modules are a lot. And I actually have 2 lectures that I have to record for phonics because I can't even fit them in one. And I'm going to after this let you guys get back to your groups. I'm going to go photocopy. Actually, no, I'll scan it and put a PDF on the website. You guys can either print it out or just answer it on Hypothesis if you want. But I'll do that after class. And that will be a good kind of like phonics reminder for you folks. But yeah, phonics is hard. And we use an acronym called CLOVER that we'll learn about. And the end of the CLOVER, and that will be in the phonics lesson. Now let me finish this one. So the token the letters, so now we're transitioning to decoding because we're giving the letters versus having them count the sounds. So if I were to say, give them cat, and now you're telling them to rearrange the letters into cat by sound. Phonics. As soon as they're doing those letters, now they're into, and you can give them extra words. So if you give them the word mitt, and you give them a pile of consonant letters, a couple vowels, and a couple stopping letters or closing vowels. You can give them the word, and this is a fun game. Or this can be one of your stations. Like phonics should, by the time you're in kindergarten, there should be a decoding station. Most kids in the state now are using foundations, almost everybody, because they're just cashing in on the new foundational skills in the Common Core State Standards. They're like, oh, let's just make a foundational skills book. And that is bar none probably the one used in almost 90% of schools right now is foundations. And they have a very specific approach to it. So I will teach you all this, but you're going to just doing whatever your job tells you to do. It's not a bad program at all. It's just naturally.
I actually just looked it up because
Yeah.
I was wanting to see what they said.
Yeah.
Because I know, like what terms that you just taught us, like Foundations was saying they teach, and it's everything that you just said. Phonemic awareness, phonics.
Yeah, that's its goal. I'm a huge center teacher. I mean, I just love movement. My kids should be doing most of the talking, not me. I like differentiating my instruction. Now, there is some research that shows that you're better off, instead of trying to figure out where every kid is in their phonemic awareness level or their phonics level, just universally teach them all the same. I think computers might change that a little bit. They might be able to differentiate skills better than people in a sense, in that kind of very discrete way. I also just think, I can do center time and move kids through their skill levels. But when you're talking meta, like in school-wide initiatives, one teacher might be able to do that, but they find that in generally keeping every kid on the same page has resulted in better learning.
They do a combination of what you said.
Yeah, in foundations, yeah.
So it's like it is about 7 minutes of daily repetitive phonemic awareness where the kids actually, after the beginning of the year, they take over and they run that 7-minute instruction, and it's their job. Everybody gets a turn to do that, and they go through the cards and their chart on the board. And then, though, they have centers thereafter where they're actually moving around stations.
I would love for me to control my centers, not like we conflate our materials with our curriculum. I think that's just because it's easier for schools to manage that way by just saying, but Foundation is a book, it's not a curriculum, even though it becomes the curriculum. But yeah, they're good centers, and that's 7 minutes, and just making the kid the teacher. That's good learning. So with manipulation, you can change. You can play with the different words, and for older readers, it's the highest level. You can play with the word chains where you're making words. You can have your word walls where you're having kids put up onsets and rhymes, and then there's different activities that we can look at. Here's name the, if I could look at some of these letters and you're reading them out to the kids and you're saying mop, bat, and there's ball and cake. I want you to circle all the words that start with a buh sound. And that's kind of what a phonological kind of guessing game could work with. You can make them memory cards. And they can match the same pictures or different pictures with the same sound. I did this with my own son. He's 5 now, but when he was 2 and 3, I just cut out these because I needed them for class, and I just gave them to him when I was done. I said, here's a new memory game. Loved it. Because it was matching by sounds, not by pictures. So he'd have to find the baseball and the bat. Granted, that would match for other reasons, but the baseball in the book. And make these matching games by sounds. And you don't give them a ton of sounds. I would give them like 2, 3 at a time. And like that. So, and in this PowerPoint, and that's in the Slack, there's a bunch of other different examples. But I do want to stop right here and look at that. And thank you, whoever out there where I stole this PowerPoint from. Remember, good teachers are really creative. The best teachers steal from the creative. I just really wish I knew where I found this PowerPoint. I could probably just Google it. I'm sure if you typed in phonemic awareness, PPT, it's probably like the first or second link because, I'm lazy. But all right, let me just stop the video.
I was not able to annotate.